Well, fellas, I'm really excited for this show because at this point, Dane and I have been talking prospects since August. Dane, obviously, the amount of man hours are incredible, what you've put into the beast and what you've been doing from a publicity standpoint, going on to shows and talking about it over the last 2 weeks. I'm sure you're ready for this thing to start next week. But until then,
Oh, the draft was tomorrow. What do you mean next week?
No, it's next week.
Oh my gosh.
You're
We got
not
another
quite
week?
over the finish line yet. But
Okay.
that's why I'm happy for a little bit of a curveball, because we've been doing this so long. I always want to guard against groupthink because you do such a good job of this, and it's easy to go along with each other's thought process and the work that you put into it. What better way to mix things up than to bring on Derrik, who is just never afraid to be an agent of chaos, as we're talking about our favorite guys in this 2026 draft class, the guys that we like the most. Derrik, I'm counting on you to like break up the groupthink a little bit.
I'm jazzed for it because people probably only know my takes on what we did the receivers, and then you and I, Dane, did the edges with Robert, and I think that's most of what I've gotten out there in terms of like public draft takes outside of like a couple of social media posts here and there.
Which, before we get into the nitty gritty of it, Derrik, and understanding, nobody has watched as many prospects as Dane, at least nobody that's not part of an NFL organization. But having had a chance to look through all this and do a couple of shows and really get into it, what's your impression of this draft class? And people talk about how unsexy the top of it is, or it's not a great year in the first round. However you want to take it, good or bad, what's your impression of this thing as we get this much closer to the draft?
So I think I'm actually a little bit closer to something that you said a few weeks ago, where it's like the draft class isn't really that bad. I just think that so often we judge draft classes based purely on quarterback, edge, and then often wide receiver. And wide receiver, there's no Jamar Chase. There's not even like a Jalen Waddle type. It's guys who are probably like a tier below that in terms of guys. There's good players, but there's no that guy is clearly going to be my number one NFL receiver. There's good edge rushers, but there's no Myles Garrett. It's not Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, any of those guys. And then the quarterback, it's a 1 QB class. And like Mendoza is good, but again, even he's not like Trevor Lawrence. Like he's not like up in that tier of prospect for a lot of people. And so I think when people look at like the premium positions, it gets knocked down. But there are tier 1 prospects at a number of other positions. Like obviously the linebacker, like top of the linebacker class is really good. Arvell Reese, I know I said the edge class is weird, but he again is a unicorn, which we've kind of talked about. Caleb Downs is a special safety prospect. Like I think some of the D tackles and offensive tackles are actually really good, even if there's not like a superstar there. So like the more I've filled out my draft work, I actually think it's like a pretty nice class.
Good depth, right? I mean, it's hard to judge an entire draft class. I think, but when you look at it position by position, you're okay. Yeah, quarterback and running back are light, but receivers deep, edge is deep, tight end is ridiculously deep. Safeties, there's some good safeties in this class, and so I was just talking about this with Nate on a different pod, but like I think that there's going to be a lot of like that top tier of players in this draft might be a little bit light, especially compared to other top 10s. But that second and third tier are pretty robust with just quality players. And that's going to make, I think, for some interesting moments on draft night in like the 20s, like the playoff teams in round 1, and then especially on day 2, where like, we've been mocking guys at certain points throughout the last few months. But obviously teams have their own grades and their own projections, and I think we're going to have some surprises. Late first round, early second round, into the third round, just because there's just a big pool of players in that range, and teams are going to be all over the map in terms of how they grade them.
I've been looking a lot at previous drafts for various shows that we're doing, various conversations that we want to have, just going back over how things fell and who went in what order. And the more I do it, the more I'm convinced this probably won't be remembered as a generational draft or a crazy, star-studded Hall of Famer draft like 2011 is the one that always comes to my mind when I talk about this. But the more I look at it, the more I feel like hindsight colors a lot of these conversations. And I don't think we're going to look back on this as an abysmal draft overall. Maybe the top 10 won't be as robust as some years that we've seen, but I believe the quality is out there. And the purpose of this show is to plant our flags on a few guys we really, really like. An early flag plant from me is I think this draft is going to be just fine / good. I really don't think it's going to be as easy to make fun of as it is right now. It's been a pet peeve of mine over the last 2 months where people parachute in and they're just like, "Oh, this sucks." I'm like, "No, it doesn't suck. It might not be 2011, but it's perfectly fine."
That's fair. I mean, especially at those key positions too, like edge, like receiver. Like if you need those positions in the draft, you're obviously going to have a little more favorable view as opposed to a team that's looking for a running back and a quarterback, right? So I do think that colors it a little bit, but I think we're all kind of in agreement there, where this might not be an amazing draft, but it's far from a subpar draft.
So in the purpose of that, we're calling this My Guys, and I charged everyone to just find a short list of guys that you really love. I think the one qualifier here is on this show, we're not really trying to talk about slam dunk top of the draft guys. Like we've done enough of the guys that are going to go top 10, even like top 15, 20. So I'm trying to limit the amount of conversations about guys that we know we're going to hear called on Thursday night, but it's fair game after that. I didn't give any parameters. You can do as many day 3 guys as you want to, or top 50 guys, whatever. So let's start. If we're doing My Guys and we're not doing slam dunk picks, let's start with fringe guys. Like if you've got a guy on your list that's somewhere in the like 25 to 40 range, maybe a fringe day 1 pick, who's your guy? And Derrik, you're the newcomer here, so I'll start with you.
Yeah, I've got 2 guys that I think fit into that exact range. And the first one to me is Peter Woods at Clemson. Like, I know
this is why I wanted you on the show.
Yeah,
nobody likes Peter Woods anymore.
I think his balance is like genuinely special. Like I think it is unbelievable. And obviously it was a little bit better in 2024 than it was in 2025. They made him cut a little bit of weight, but I just think the way that he can, like, to me, the how you kind of a very good window into how well an NFL defensive lineman is going to hold up, especially in run defense, is like when he's got to get low and like almost to a knee, or he gets knocked onto only one leg, how well can he hold his balance? I don't know if anyone in this class does it as well as Peter Woods, like pound for pound. And I know that he's like, you can kind of see the explosive traits, but then it doesn't always show up as much as you want as a pass rusher. And I think that can be pretty frustrating with him. And that's probably why he's fallen off boards the way that people thought he was going to be compared coming into the year when he was like a slam dunk top 5, top 10 pick. But to me, I just look at somebody with his traits and think if he gets to the right team, like I think he can be an absolute superstar. And to me, there was a little bit of like, every now and then we get really good prospects who their program overall kind of falls apart in their given year and it hurts their draft stock, and then they end up being a very good player once they finally come out. I kind of think both Woods and TJ Parker, who I talked about on the Edge show, is a guy that I really like. I think both of them kind of suffered from that.
I think that's fair. One thing that I liked about watching Clemson late in the year was TJ Parker kept, even though the season didn't live up to the hype and what we expected for TJ Parker, he kept popping for me. Just making plays and just being a presence where I wanted to see that from Peter Woods more consistently. But coming into the year, he was my number 1 player in the draft. Like
He sure was.
I think this guy can be, based on the talent that he put on the 2024 tape, and thinking, okay, if he takes another step in 2025, where this guy could be 80% Jalen Carter, he can be something that is truly, how we talk, even more impressive how we talked about, Byron Murphy when he was coming out of Texas. But those guys, like I think of Byron Murphy and I think of him like ascending and just feeling good about where he was headed. Now with Woods, it's kind of the opposite, where I mean, he had 14 pressures this year, 14, and it's just it's hard for me because I don't disagree with you. He's still in the 30s for me because the traits I'm not just totally going to give up, but it's just hard for me to get there with him totally as a first round pick when it just he left me wanting so much more on tape in terms of production. The testing, there's nothing about the testing that wows you. And part of that's injury related. So I won't be surprised when Peter Woods is the 25th pick or goes somewhere in the late first round, because I don't think you're alone, Derek, in terms of there's too much talent in this body for me to just totally pass on him at this point in the draft. I just personally couldn't get there.
And I get that. Like, if he, because of the production, because of the not ascending, like, I totally get that. I think there are just some times where you choose to believe that whatever I saw from his best is what he can be. And I think with a player like Woods, given how good some of the traits are, like, I think he can be that. Like, again, I know I'm higher on him than a lot of other people, but like, if I'm Minnesota sitting there at like 18, like, I'm thinking about it, because I just think that they'd need that position. And two, like, I think he fits what they do. Like, that's kind of, to me, the range where I really start thinking about a guy like Woods.
Dane, can you map out for me how serious the injury issues are? Because I want to fall back on the traits, but we don't even have that much to go off of. Like, he didn't do all that much during the pre-draft process.
Yeah, and I don't think it's anything serious. It was a hamstring or something. It was like a soft tissue thing. So not something that I feel like is going to.
It's not like
linger.
Jeopardizing his availability. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing like that. But he is tough, because this is a defensive tackle class where I think that a lot of teams need defensive tackles. They want those guys, but this draft doesn't have, in my opinion, a slam dunk lock first round pick. Some teams really like Caden McDonald. Peter Woods has the talent. It just, he leaves you wanting more. And so, but sometimes it makes sense to grade to the flashes. And when you grade to the flashes with Peter Woods, I get it 100%. It's just, I think some teams will, other teams won't when it comes to this player.
This is not the purpose of this show, but it makes perfect sense if a team wants to trade for Dexter Lawrence between now and the end of the draft, considering the top 5 guys in this class kind of scare the bejesus out of you for one reason or another, whether it's injury, scheme, production. I think I'm colored by doing this through the whole process with Dane. I think Peter Woods was the first guy we talked about, Derek. Like, when we did our first show about hey, who's good this year? Peter Woods started that show. And ever since, you just add another reason to not like the guy. And so for you to stand firm on it, maybe it's a classic case of not overthinking it and hey, the traits and the potential at a position this important, I could see why it's worth taking a gamble on.
And I think, to me, sometimes it's why were the lows what they were? And I think with Woods, it's a lot of kind of like you were saying, Dane, he kind of just leaves you wanting. To me, I don't think he makes that many mistakes. Like, when I think of a mistake-making defensive tackle who had really good flashes, it's like Robert Kimdiche was this way. I think Javon Kinlaw was this way, where it's the explosiveness and their ability to get in the backfield was insane. They were also kind of guessing or a little bit slow at times mentally. And that is not, to me, the issue with Peter Woods. It's a lot of, you just don't see the juice that he clearly has, actually show up in the backfield. But I feel like when he's getting, down blocked, he sees it really well. He understands what types of, run concepts that he's getting. To me, it's not a mistakes thing. It's just a, why are you not tapping into your athletic ability thing, which that to me is a little bit more fixable, which maybe is rose-colored glasses, being a little bit optimistic, but I just do think that stuff is a little bit more fixable.
I don't know. It kind of bothers me that he has more rushing yards. He had more rushing yards last year than pressures. I don't know.
That is on its face a bad stat for anybody.
Yeah. So just wanted to throw it out there.
I feel like when I throw out one of my guys on this show, it's just going to be Dane saying, "Oh my God, this guy again," because he's heard me get excited about all these guys at one point or another. But if I'm talking about a fringe first round, maybe early second round guy, I'll keep going back to him. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it if we don't want to. I love Denzel Boston, man, and I'm happy to plant my flag because I've been sick of the slander this entire time. He's not Keon Coleman. He's not. He's a perfectly good athlete. I know he didn't run. I don't care. He had a 6'8" 3-cone at his size, which is almost 6'4". He put up a 37.5-inch vert at his pro day. Like, he is a good athlete, and when you watch him, he moves well. Like, he might not be a blazer, but he's not a slow guy. He's got strong hands. He catches away from his body. He's a willing blocker. I don't really understand the hate, to be honest with you. And I think people are reluctant to believe in the bigger receiver because, and I get it. Sometimes the cool high point red zone plays are, they're not as valuable as they look on a highlight reel, but I think he's a better football player than that. And I don't think he's a bad athlete. And I think he's been not getting his due credit for most of this draft process.
So what you're saying is you're Laquon Treadwell.
Shut up. Hey, we don't have to do that. My all-time,
I only say
my greatest albatross ever.
You and I both. We both liked Laquon Treadwell. But no, I mean, I agree. I think he's
Laquon
better.
Treadwell, who's still in the NFL, by the way, definitely
point.
did not have the career I was envisioning, but like he's still playing pro football.
Like I like Boston a lot more than I like N'Keal Harry or like some of these other guys that have come through that just really struggle to separate. And not that Boston's going to be this top tier separator in the NFL, but there's a lot more about his profile I feel more comfortable with. He's got that my ball mentality. He plays with physicality. The play strength shows, so he will use his body and shield the defender from the ball. I want to see him get a little bit better in terms of tracking the ball over his shoulder, but I think when the ball's in front of him, he can snare the ball away from his body and put it away. And I think it's fair to call him an underrated athlete. I think that not having that data point at the 40-yard dash, people will throw out just the word slow or whatever. I don't think that's the case. I think he's an underrated athlete at this point.
It feels like with those guys, the 6'4", 210, 215, anytime that they're not Andre Johnson or Julio Jones, it's like, oh, they're not a good athlete. And it's like, there's middle ground. Like, you could be Cortland Sutton, right? Which to me, like, that's kind of a pretty good, that to me would be like a good outcome for a guy like Denzel Boston, where it's like, Sutton is not like an exceptional athlete, but he runs well enough for that size. He can get in and out of his breaks well enough. And again, like you guys have mentioned, goes up and attacks the ball really well. So I think Boston was a guy I liked more than loved, but like he really is the only big bodied X receiver like inside the top 40 that you probably want to take in this class.
And if you wanted to play him as a big slot, I think you could do that. I mean, I think that it'll be interesting to see how these receivers come off the board. Probably see 5 or 6 of them go in the first round. And if Boston's the sixth of 6 that gets drafted, I won't be surprised. But at the same time, if he goes to the Chiefs at 29, like that can get me excited about what that could look like this year.
You don't have to love him as much as I do, but I can't do the Keon Coleman stuff anymore. It's just not true. And that's where I come down on it. I think he's a good player. If he falls out of the first round, I don't think that would be terribly surprising. But I mean, I'm right there with you, Dane. If he goes to one of these late first round teams that has a quarterback, obviously I'm all in on that. All right, Dane, I think I know who your answer for this is going to be, but let's put it out there one more time. There's only a week until the draft.
I think there's most of my answers are day 3 guys and late round guys, but I did have 2 guys that would qualify for this bucket. They're both corners. Chris Johnson, San Diego State, and D'Angelo Pons from Indiana. Just both these players I think are going to be really good pros. And Chris Johnson's a guy I liked over the summer, and then come in September watching his tape against was it the Cal tape, and there were a few other ones where it's just, okay, I'm running out of reasons why this guy is not going to hit and be a good pro. And I know talking to scouts, they always mention his speed. He might run in the 4.5s, might be a 4.55 guy, and that was kind of the big knock on him. And I don't like he didn't look like a burner on film, but I also don't think he looked like he was slow. And then he goes to the combine, rips off a 4.40, and it's like, okay, like now we're out of reasons why this guy can't be a really solid starter. Just a smooth player. The ball instincts are there. Played inside outside in college, but he's a little slender, so like not the most physical in terms of as a run defender, but he's good enough. He's going to get his guy on the ground. So I'm just a big fan of Chris Johnson. He's my corner 3 in this draft, and if McCoy's knee is that much of an issue, wouldn't be surprised if he's corner 2. But I think he should be in that first round mix. And then D'Angelo Pons, who the size is the size, but since he was at James Madison as a freshman All-American, this guy just produces. And I think, we tend to push these guys inside because of their size. But his play style to me says he can stay outside. I have no problem with that. Now, there will be times where going up against a Denzel Boston style of receiver, there's an obvious mismatch and just in terms of size, but he's been undersized his entire life, and so I think that just accentuates his other strengths as a player, his read react, his ability to click and close and make plays at the catch point, how physical and tough that he is. I'm gonna bet on the player, and there will be times where the size will show in coverage, but it's every other play that I think he's gonna be able to make up for that.
Do you think, and obviously it would depend on the quality of player, but like, I mean, what I'm hearing from you in the case of D'Angelo Pons is like, if you can make peace with the size, like the coverage ability, the ability to mirror, the ability to make it difficult to get open on this guy, is it possible for that to override the length? Because like, I can understand the logic of, hey, 1 to 3 times a game, the length might be an issue, but 80% of the time, this is going to be okay. And like, that kind of bucks conventional wisdom, but the tape would tell you that maybe it's worth betting on in the case of a guy like this.
80% of the time, it works every time. I mean, that's look, Pons he's just a competitor, and every single snap, you just, as a receiver, you just know you're in for a long day. And really, the only tape that you could really see the size disadvantage was against Jeremiah Smith, but he does that to Jeremiah Smith does that to everybody. And I think with Pons, there's just a confidence, a swagger to the way he plays that it's just sometimes it doesn't always show up in maybe the testing or something you can quantify, but when you see it on tape, you just point to it and say, yeah, that's it, I know it. But he also has the production. That's the thing, is the testing, okay, ran on the 4.3s. The production, he had multiple interceptions each of his 3 years in college, double-digit passes defended each of his 3 years in college. The tackle numbers are high. He gets busy as a run defender. So there's just enough where he's a top 40 player, in my opinion. And if he snuck into the late first round, I wouldn't be shocked at all.
I think, like you said, Dane, my favorite trait about him is like he makes you earn it. And so he might have these limitations. He might have, he can't get his hands on you as quickly as he wants, but every single rep, he's going to make you earn it. And that's just not true of even some of the other really good corners in this class. And so I think that like that is a nice feather in his cap.
One last question on this before we take a break, Dane, but mentioning, and you've been on Chris Johnson this whole time. That's the guy that I was joking. I was confident you were going to say. If there's consideration for him as CB2, like if teams just aren't comfortable with Jermod McCoy's medicals, what do you think the potential ceiling is? Like, I mean, we're talking about him as a fringe first round guy, and I take that to mean somewhere in the 20s. Is it possible he could go in the teens somewhere if teams really view him as CB2?
I mentioned this earlier, how I think the back half of round 1, I'm excited because like I think we're gonna have some pretty surprising picks. Just because this is a draft where that second tier and that third tier are all over the place. That first tier, say there's, I don't know, 9 to 12 guys, just on an average from team to team. But that second tier, say it's 25 guys. The order is going to look so much different from team to team and what you usually see in mock drafts. So Chris Johnson, sure, if he went, I don't know, 19th to the Panthers or 18th to the Vikings, would that be all that shocking? To me, I don't think so. But if he also went 31st or 32nd to the Seahawks, like I think that's in the realm of possibility. So I'm kind of open for anything at this point in the back half of round 1. I think it's going to make for a really exciting, as we are talking through it in live time during our live show. I think it's going to be a lot of fun just seeing how it all plays out.
All right, in my imaginary my guys group, I'm calling this like the firm day 2 guys. Like, let's call this the sweet spot between far enough from pick 32 to not be fringe, but still comfortably like top 100 players. Derrik, again, I talk to Dane every week. I'm excited to hear from you. I want to hear what you have to say about this. Who's your number 1 guy in this category?
There's a few I've got in this tier, but I think the one that I like the most relative to like looking at consensus boards or Dane's boards or whatever it is, Jalon Kilgore, the nickel safety, whatever you want to call him, out of South Carolina.
Remarkable. This is remarkable. Rocks. You just watch 2025 tape and say, I don't care about this. I like this guy.
I thought his 2025 tape is good. Like I think that.
I want to be clear in case I'm aggravating anybody. It's not that his tape was bad. Dane and I had a whole conversation about this where he just played so much slot. I didn't know what to do with it.
So I actually think that if he had to play slot 12 years ago, I don't know if he really fit like the mold for what the NFL was doing, where it was guys who were a little bit smaller, a little bit quicker, really guys who were like pure coverage guys. That's not always Kilgore. Like, I think there are a couple of times when he's got to like turn up the field. He can be a little bit stiff. I think he's a good athlete, but not probably as explosive as you want. But I just think when we're getting to an NFL that is a little bit more willing to play these guys who are bigger bodies, who are really good with zone eyes, who can be good tacklers, who are really smooth in space, to me, he checks all those boxes. Like, I think his trigger is phenomenal. And I also think with him, you see some DBs take risks based purely on the quarterback's eyes. Like they'll just be jumping early just based on where the quarterback is and they'll end up out of position or whatever. And Kilgore will end up out of position sometimes. But to me, when I'm watching it, he's clearly guessing based off of like formation and tendency and what he's thinking he's getting with film study, which sometimes you're going to end up in the wrong spot. Sometimes you're also going to get to the spot before the receiver does and get your hands on a football. And I think that he does that enough times that I thought that was pretty encouraging. Athletically, again, I don't know if he's super explosive, but I think he's like pretty smooth in terms of his footwork, his hips when he needs to be. So like I liked the way that he moved around. So he's just the guy where I don't know if you can see like superstar potential at any, at any level, whether it's at safety or nickel, the way that, we've seen some of these other bigger guys be able to do that. But I feel pretty good about him being able to like play pretty solid football across the board and just be like a really, really solid zone defender for you.
Where ideally are you playing him in the NFL?
I don't mind playing him in the nickel. And like, if you need to make him more of a box, like, down in the down safety, I think that's probably fine too. But like, I would be comfortable using him as not exclusively a nickel, but like, I'd be comfortable playing him that way. Like, he to me is like, I think a guy who played safety and then transitioned down to the nickel and it worked for him. And obviously he plays with a little bit more of his hair on fire, so it's different, was Jalen Petrie. I think that like that is something that like Kilgore is capable of, like being that level of a nickel.
He's a really impressive, like just height, weight, speed athlete. He's 210 pounds, ran a 4.40. Like the testing is awesome, and I think you're really encouraged by the fact that he stepped in from day one as a freshman. I think it's actually because Nick Emmanwori got hurt. And so they kind of adjusted things. Kilgore gets thrown in there. He starts double-digit games as a freshman and was a freshman All-American. And you look at the ball production, and it's like, okay, the last 3 years he has 8 combined interceptions, and the ball kind of finds him. And so there's a lot to like about his profile, no doubt. My struggle with him is, I guess I see him more as... like he is a good athlete, but I think the functional athleticism I don't love in terms of him playing man-to-man and being a nickel guy. I see him more as, in just my opinion, I see him more as a guy that I want ranging over the top in coverage, where you are going to play him deep. And like, there's no tape of that though, where I can throw it on and say, okay, this is what he does. So the lack of functional control in his movements, I thought, gave some separation opportunities to receivers, and I think that'd only be highlighted more against NFL level tight ends and receivers that he goes up against. But I say that while also saying I think this is a good football player. Like I want to find a spot for him. I just think it's more going to be off the ball, because I do like his trigger, like you said, where he can kind of read the field and use that speed, go and attack. There's no film of him doing it from kind of that deep alignment that I want to see. So I struggled with Kilgore a little bit, but I mean, ultimately he ended up as, like, I think a top 75, top 80 prospect for me. But I won't be surprised at all if he goes a little bit sooner, because you're betting on the ball production, the athleticism, and just the idea that maybe he does have a little more versatility than I'm leading on.
And like you mentioned earlier, like one thing that will play for me, especially at linebacker and safety, is like experience. Like if you can get on the field early at those positions, that to me says that, like, all right, you're pretty sharp, and like you kind of know what's going on, especially if you're around other NFL players. And so, like it is like a weird projection, trying to feel like fully comfortable projecting what he did onto what he might do in the NFL. But to me, he just, like, in every other way checked all the boxes that I want, and I was like, I'll take that risk.
Jalon Kilgore is an attempt for me to learn my lesson as somebody who covers this stuff, because the tape's not bad, but I agree with Dane. Like, it's a lot of tape of him doing stuff that I don't know if I'm going to ask him to do it in the NFL. And specifically, the Texas A&M game is the one that we highlighted when we talked about it, where it's like, Casey Concepcion in the slot is probably a mismatch for you. And that's okay. That's normal. That's what's supposed to happen. And so you watch his tape and you're like, I don't know if this is what I want you to be doing down in and down out in the NFL, but you're almost 6'2" and you ran a 4.4. And the fact that you can do some of that stuff is very encouraging. So I'm comfortable making a bet that you can flourish in a different role and maybe with a more varied ask at the NFL level. Like, I don't think I would have liked him as much as I do 2-3 years ago, but I'm trying to learn my lesson that just because you don't see a guy do it on tape in college doesn't always mean, like, he's clearly a good football player, even if I would draft him to do something different in the NFL. My guys, I'm going to do a twofer, and I'm cheating a little bit because one of these guys is French, but whatever, Dane. Two of my favorite players in this entire draft class, I think, are going to go early Friday. They play the same position, not very far away from each other. Zion Young and Gabe Jacas. I love these guys, both of them. I think they're just, like, when you talk about having fun watching tape, these are just two of the most fun guys in this draft class, in my opinion. And it's what excites me about this edge class is, like, yeah, like, Arvell Reese is a little bit of a projection. There's not a ton of, like, high end edge talent at the top of the draft, but there's just 3 or 4 guys, like, back into the first round into, like, the top 50, 60 picks where I'm like, don't tell me this guy can't be a meaningful part of a productive pass rush. And yeah, wherever you want to start with it. I mean, Zion Young is just a menace against the run. I love the attitude that he plays with and the violence that he plays with. Jacas is just, his motor never stops. He's always active. He uses his hands really well. And I think Zion did he lead the SEC in tackles for loss, Dane?
If not, he was up there. I mean, geez, he had a ton.
I think he led the SEC in tackles for loss, and he was 3rd in pressures. And Gabe Jacas led the Big Ten in sacks, and he led Illinois in all pass rush production for the last, like, 2 years. Like, the body of work is there. They're fun to watch right now. I don't know if either one of these guys is ever going to be, like, a 10-plus sack player, but I don't really care.
You went with the ass kickers, right? I mean,
give me the ass kickers. And I will say, I talk about Zion Young all the time. It's worth mentioning, the DWI in December and the altercation when he was at Michigan State. Like, these are things that NFL teams are going to have to evaluate and decide how much of a risk it is. I'm not blind to that, but if you're talking about a day 2 value and just watching the guy play football, he's a blast.
Zion Young is a warrior, man. Like, he has one of my favorite plays in this class where against Bama, they were trying to, like, pull a guard into him, and the way that
fumble.
Yes, where he just dents right into the dude's chest, like, opens up the gap. I was just like, oh my God, if you could do that against
I listened to y'all's Edge Pod, and you were going on about Zion, and I was like, yes, Derrik, welcome to the movement.
He's just so good.
I mean, you just watch all of his run game reps against Caden Proctor, and you're like, all right, yeah, he can hold up. Not a ton of deception to either of these guys as pass rushers. Like, you kind of know what you're getting, but yeah, and especially with Jacas, he's. I remember watching Johnny Newton back in the day. It was only a couple years ago, but like as a freshman, Jacas was standing out. He was like announcing himself as the next guy on that Illinois front, and so the fact that his production got better every year, the hand usage is really impressive to me, and so obviously not a surprise. He was a former wrestler, high profile wrestler coming up in high school. And yeah, both these guys are just easy. Just feel like guys you want on your team. Like maybe you don't draft them in the top 25, but you hopefully can find a spot for him in the early second round, or you just want him on your roster.
Can I actually, another quick my guy to like kind of segue off of this a little bit? Same team, Josiah Trotter is like my kind of linebacker.
We talked about him earlier this week. Yeah, he's fun.
I mean, I guess my only issue is the coverage, but if you're looking for a hammer, looking for a nail, I mean, that's exactly what you want.
That's the thing. Like, you got to know what he is. And like, he's just the space that he concedes in coverage. He's not going to run with guys on like option routes and stuff like that. That's not really his game. But when I say my kind of linebacker, like Dallen Bentley is my favorite kind of linebacker when he was playing really well. I think Josiah Trotter can be exactly that, which, like you said, Dane, like hammer looking for a nail. I think the fact that it's not just that he has that style, which I obviously love, the fact that he can hit as hard as he does and see it as well as he does at 20 years old, I'm like, man, the ceiling is at least purely as a run defender is pretty damn high if that's where you're starting at.
I think I just had an epiphany about why I like day 2 prospects so much, and it's just because it's like, oh, well,
they're flawed.
His coverage isn't great, and I'm like, yeah,
right.
No shit, he's gonna go 75th overall.
Right.
Like, so what? It's easier to let go of a guy's flaws if I'm picking him in the 3rd round.
Right. There's flaws, but there's something about him that you just like, yeah, I want this guy on my team. And I mean, yeah, Josiah Trotter is the type of player and competitor that his dad, I'm sure, is very proud of, right? I mean, just the way Jeremiah Trotter played in the league, and that is something that because he started at West Virginia, goes to Missouri, and 1 year at Missouri, but he impressed enough where he's a first team all SEC player. And so yeah, I think it's easy to like him. It's just you have to understand that on passing downs, you have to hide him a little bit, or you have to be comfortable with what you're asking him to do. And
he's a good blitzer, so you can kind of hide him in that way.
Yeah. And so I think as long as you have a plan for that, without just completely taking him off the field in those situations, yeah, I mean, I would totally understand taking him. I mean, I graded him as like a top 70, borderline top 75 guy, or no, he was like 70 on my board, something like that. So I'm right there with you. It's just you have to be okay with the coverage stuff. So one of my day 2 guys, along the lines of the edge rushers we were talking about, Keyron Crawford from Auburn, who is, again, you turn on the Auburn tape to watch Keldrick Falk, and then you come away talking about number 24. I wish they gave him more opportunities to get after the quarterback. He's clearly explosive. We don't have testing numbers for him, but he plays with the explosiveness that I think is going to translate well. He moves well in space, and I was always taught that to judge an athlete on the football field is to really study him in space. How does he move? What's the change of direction like? What's the twitch? And I think with Keyron Crawford, to me, I think that he checks a lot of those boxes that I'm looking for. So I had a lot of problems with that Auburn defense and the way they kind of deployed their best players. I wish Crawford had more opportunities to get after the quarterback, because when he did, I thought it looked pretty appealing.
Keyron Crawford is like the video game that's mocking you when you should be studying, because you're watching Keldrick Falk and like you're like, I gotta dial in. Like, he doesn't really have the sack numbers. Auburn's scheme is weird. I gotta figure out how I feel about Keldrick Falk. And then Keyron Crawford's over on the other side, just like, wouldn't you rather just watch all this fun shit instead? I won't leave you in suspense, guys. I'll just start off with our day 3 prospects. My guy, a guy that I've loved probably since November. And Dane, I'm honestly I'm curious if you can help me out with why he's not talked about more. Maybe because we just don't have that many snaps of him playing his NFL position. But I mentioned Keyron Crawford because one of the 2 sacks allowed last season by Trey Zuhn was to Keyron Crawford. And I get it. He's a college left tackle. I think there's 125 snaps of him playing center. So maybe people are just low on him because there's not that big of a body of work. But Trey Zuhn was an awesome left tackle for Texas A&M. And you tell me he's going to move to center. I'm really excited about that. And I think he's going to be very successful as an NFL center.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong at all. I mean, I think he's just kind of stuck in that third, fourth round range where there's several centers.
It kind of feels like they all are. That's
Yeah,
where the whole center class is.
That's what I'm saying. So like he's stuck with Jake Slaughter and Hecht from Kansas State and Logan Jones from Iowa, and it's just kind of which one do you prefer? But Zuhn's absolutely he's in that mix right there. I had an NFL scout tell me that the coaching staff told him that Zuhn is the most pro-ready lineman they've ever had. That staff, going back to, I think probably going back to Duke and before they were at A&M. But he's just somebody that can handle, realistically handle multiple positions. So he's gonna help you get the 5 best out there. Center's probably gonna be his best position, but teams really believe he has 5 position flexibility. So in a pinch, he can go out and play tackle. He can play guard. That type of versatility is key. And so I think he's right there on the borderline. Like in my final top 100 or my final top 300, he's somewhere high up there. He's like 102. So like right on the border for me.
I feel like you're not drafting him to be a full-time tackle, but I really love that that's probably an option if you draft him. If Trey Zuhn just needed to handle right tackle for you for an afternoon, it might not be amazing, but you could ask him to do it, which is incredible. I mean, he was an ass kicker in one of the toughest conferences in America, and I think the 2 guys that gave him problems were probably Keyron Crawford, and then very famously Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor gave that whole Texas A&M line fits. But guess what? Those guys rock. Like, that's okay if you struggle with those guys, especially out on the edge where you're probably not going to spend as much time in the NFL. I don't know. Plug and play is dangerous when you're talking about like a potential day 3 prospect, but I think his upside is so high moving inside. And like I said, I expect this guy to have a pretty long NFL career.
And that's not totally unheard of too, right? Like the Packers all the time used to just take purely left tackles and then move them all over the line, including into center. Obviously Barton did, Barton was a different caliber of a prospect, but like there's some proof of concept that if you can do it, like NFL teams will give you a chance to go and do it.
All right, Derrik, what about you? Let's talk some day 3 guys.
We can actually, funny enough, stay at Texas A&M, and I have 2 here. One of them, I think more realistically, body type wise, actually has a chance to like surprise and be pretty good. The other one, I just adore him. The first is the cornerback Will Lee, number 4. Anytime I am watching some sort of other offensive prospect, I'm just like, man, number 4 is just on these guys. And there are a couple of times where you can see some stiffness in his hips and he'll be a little bit high trying to transition in and out of breaks, but he's a guy who has he's like 6 foot. He's really long. He ran pretty well, jumped out of the gym. Like he's just, to me, has a lot of the traits that you're looking for and is consistently a guy who to me had like pretty good reps when I was watching a lot of other offensive players, or obviously some of the other defensive prospects that were on Texas A&M, which, speaking of, the player that I know what he is, and he probably won't be very good in the NFL, I think Taurean York's film is
fun,
unbelievable. He's and here's, I'll start with why it probably won't work. He's like, he's 5'11", 226 pounds, obviously pretty small. The other guys that are like 5'10", 5'11", usually they're thicker. So it's like Michael Kendricks was this way, but he was 240. Blake Cashman was a little bit thicker. Chris Borland, if we remember, who was really good for a minute, he was 240. Dre Greenlaw is 5'11", but he's 240. But even the guys who maybe didn't quite get to like 240 in terms of weight, they're usually longer. Like Denzel Perryman is 2 full inches longer in terms of arm length. Nick Bolton in that same boat. Nakobe Dean, even though he's a guy who's a little bit shorter and like not that thick, he's got longer arms than a guy like Taurean York. And so he's limited by all these things, and he's not like an exceptional athlete. But when I watch the film in terms of linebacker know-how, like the learnable skills of the position, I think he's second only to Sonny Styles. Like he truly understands the position at an extremely high level. It's just he's just not probably built to be a pro. And so he's a guy that like I want on my roster. It's probably going to be purely as your fourth linebacker.
He's so easy to like. I mean, just and watching him at Shrine Bowl practices and then really appreciating his tape. I agree. I mean, he knows how to play the position. He knows how to play it at a high level. He's a future coach, right? Like that's a guy 100%. That's going to be, and it might be sooner than he probably wants it to be. Like I don't know that he's going to get drafted because of those limitations, but the tape says he should be drafted. His mentality and the know-how says he should be drafted. It's just the lack of inches at certain parts. Like that's just it's going to hurt him. And I had far more strengths. Like the bullet points under his strengths are probably triple the number of negatives I have. The bullet points under the weaknesses. It's just some of those weaknesses are pretty important.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, there's not that many. It's just they're so pronounced that it's like, what can you do? And he's also a player that, I mentioned all those other similar comparisons. The only guys who you can find who are very similar height, weight, and arm length are like David Long, who, was a very specific type of player. Malcolm Rodriguez, who never was really able to crack like starting rosters. Ivan Pace Jr., who has been like kind of a fringe starting level player, but also in a very specific role. Landon Roberts, maybe, but even he was a little bit heavier. Like it really is hard to find like analogous cases for a player built like him, but you watch him and it's like, man, if you could put him in Anthony Hill's body or something like that, it's a top 15 pick, but it's just, that's not where we're at.
Ivan Pace is we brought him up, right? When we did.
We absolutely did.
Like to me, like that's the most, like he went undrafted and then he goes to the Vikings and he was an impact starter for them. Now, we'll see York hopefully goes to the right spot and gets an opportunity. Hopefully he's got some staying power, but it's just, yes, these guys tend to get overlooked by teams.
Talking to scouts about Taurean York was like finding out the tooth fairy is not real, where they were just like, yeah, sorry, man. That's probably not a thing, unfortunately. But I absolutely see him as the type of guy where, he hears his name called very, very late or has to sign undrafted. And he is immediately going to have so many fans among the fan base of the team that adds him, where they're like, oh my God, we got this guy in undrafted free agency. Our scouting department kicks ass. This is great. And hopefully he makes the most of that opportunity.
Okay, I'll go now. So day 3, guys, I'm going to go with a couple of those Hoosiers. A lot of Indiana players are going to get drafted. My guy, Riley Nowakowski, got to talk about him.
You got to bring him up on a My Guys show.
Got to. He's so useful, and I think that'll continue in the NFL. Former walk-on, former linebacker. Wisconsin didn't know what to do with him. Goes to Indiana, and he becomes this unsung hero of the offense, where he's not getting any headlines, but he executes every single play, whether he's asked to be a blocker, he's asked to just work underneath and help move the chains. Goal line, they gave him a couple goal line carries. He has 2 touchdowns as a fullback. So just the ability, and there's only so many landing spots in the NFL for a guy like this, who's more of that H-back role. But I don't know. I think he has staying power. I think he's going to be in this league for a long time and be just someone that's too useful to get rid of.
What do you have like a potential comparison, Dane? Would it be somebody like Reggie Gilliam, of like in that mold?
Yeah, right. I think that's like he's not quite Juszczyk, but similar in terms of role. And Gilliam's a good one. But like, how many teams realistically use that type of that have that role as part of their offense? It's just it's not many. And so fit and finding the right situation is going to be paramount for a guy like this. But I just think there's too much there. Special teams as well. So even if he's not a premier player on offense, I think special teams will keep him around. So Riley Nowakowski, someone I wanted to highlight, and then stick with Indiana, Kaelon Black, the running back, who my highest ranked combine snub at running back. He's a top 10 running back in this class for me. At the pro day, he tested really well, 4.45 in the 40, 37.5-inch vert, and he's somebody that just the legs just keep churning. The feet turning it over. Talked to multiple safeties in this class who specifically pointed out Black as the toughest guy that they had to tackle all year, just because of how the motor keeps going, and he makes it a chore on defenders to get him to the ground. And so he's a no-nonsense runner, but good decision-making. Pass pro shows up. Some of the backs in this class, I think, really struggle in pass pro. Jeremiah Love might actually be the best pass protecting back in this class, which is kind of weird to say because usually the top guy, that's one spot where he's missing. But Love, top pass catcher, top pass protector. Kaelon Black's the other guy that finds a lot of success because that same thing I was talking about with him as a runner, that same effort, that same physicality, it shows with him in pass protection as well.
I'm glad we're taking some time to highlight Hoosiers who are not Fernando and the receivers because there are plenty of them. Like Pat Coogan is another guy worth mentioning who we haven't talked a ton about in this draft cycle. We have talked plenty about Aiden Fisher, but another good player who's probably going to get drafted on day 3. There's more to it than just the Hoosier passing game for sure.
No doubt. Can we go around, maybe do some like honorable mentions? Because I want to hear more of your guys'.
I do have at least one more day 3 guy, so I would love to do that.
I got plenty. I mean, we could do 2 hours if you want to. Yeah, go, Derek. Throw one out there.
So one that I already talked about this guy on the receiver show, but I really just think like once you get outside of the top 100, this is the guy that I want. Reggie Virgil out of Texas Tech, I think is just, I just think that he's sweet. Like the route running and the pluckiness that he has in terms of just finding the ball away from his body. I said it on that show, but like it reminds me very much of like Carnell Tate. And obviously that's just a different caliber of athlete, but just it looks like that when he's doing it. He's also a guy that like he's played mostly on the outside. He was 83% outside according to SIS and some of their draft data. He's a guy who ran a lot of vertical routes, so he can kind of be your like Devonta Smith could be this way on the outside. Chris Olave is a little bit this way just in terms of that like skinnier guy who helps you clear vertically. I think that he can do that. He didn't run very well, but I think he like strides well enough that he can do it. And then again, I think just his ability to like get in and out of zones when he has to, I thought was impressive. And then he's also not that old. Like Dane, you have this in the Beast. He's newer to wide receiver, which usually guys who are like newer to a position, it takes them an extra year or 2 in college, but he's a 4-year senior, only 22 years old, like not a guy who's super old. And so I just, for a lot of those reasons, I really liked him. He to me feels like, this is going to not sound like the sexiest comparison, but from 2015 to 2018, Seth Roberts was like a really nice wide receiver 3 for the Raiders at a very similar build, like 6'2", 195. And then the COVID seasons happened and he kind of like his career fizzled out. But if you can find like a really solid 400 and 500, wide receiver 3, 400, 500 yard wide receiver 3 in the 4th, 5th round, he to me is like a pretty good bet to be that guy.
I like
Seth
that.
Roberts caught 183 balls over the course of his NFL career. Like,
yeah.
I did like. Obviously, the hope is you find Puka Nacua in the 5th round, but like that is a perfectly good way to use a day 3 draft pick. Absolutely.
And there are 2 bigger receivers, I think, in that 5th round range that I really like. It's Reggie Virgil and Colbie Young from Georgia. Both those guys, I think, are good values at that point in the draft.
Roll your eyes all you want, Dane, but I have to put it on the record a week before the draft. If we're talking about my guys,
Here you go.
You already brought up Black out of Indiana, but let's talk Jonah Coleman briefly. Let's just do it. I like him more than you do, and that's okay. But
yeah.
I'm sick of him being overlooked, and I assume it's because he's short and slow, which is a big, it's a bad combination for a running back. But
you love the Washington guys.
I was thinking that this morning. Number one, I went back and watched like 2 Jonah Coleman cut-ups this morning just to refresh myself because I haven't needed to look at him recently. And number one, I was like, damn, what's my thing with Washington this year? And then the other thing, I was like, oh, look, there's Denzel Boston again doing something badass. But I think Jonah Coleman's awesome. And yeah, like his speed is problematic. That's why he's probably going to be drafted on Saturday. We're not talking about a top 50 pick at running back, but I just love guys with good contact balance who like don't go down on the first tackle attempt. And every time I watch Jonah Coleman, that's what he does. He's just a little bowling ball. He's got fantastic balance. He's either going to make the first guy miss because I think he's got good change of direction, or he's just going to stay on his feet when that first guy dives at his ankles. On top of that, for how small he is a good blocker. Like, you can find plenty of reps of him stonewalling guys in the hole. And I think what goes underrated with him, it's easy to look at college running backs and be like, oh, he needs to work on his abilities as a receiver. Jonah Coleman caught 87 passes in college. And one funny thing that I noticed while I was rewatching him, Damon Williams did not always make life easy on him. Like, he's firing lasers at this guy from like point blank range. And like just not a whole lot of touch to speak of. And he's catching it anyway and usually doing something with it after the catch. So he's undersized. He's kind of slow. I understand why he's going to get drafted where he gets drafted, but I think he's a good football player.
Yeah, I mean, he is. It just, the lack of juice bothers me, and that's why he's a 4-5, fourth round pick, fifth round pick for me, as opposed to, where would you take him top 100?
Like, probably not, but you influence me so heavily, I have to admit, like, I've spent 8 months talking to you.
I don't let that be a case. I mean, shoot,
hey,
I'm wrong plenty.
If I was the Seahawks and I still needed a running back when I had at pick number 96, absolutely I would take him. For sure I would. And and Mike Washington's more exciting because he is so fast, but like if fringe top 100, I'd pull the trigger for sure.
Can I give you one of my another running back?
Yeah, sure.
And we'll call him a running back, but Eli Heidenreich from Navy, who you're drafting him because what he does as a pass catcher. His ball skills are so impressive. 6 foot, 200 pounds. He's grouped with the receiver or with the running backs, but really he's more of a weapon with how you're going to use him out of the backfield. You think of that Navy offense, and it's that option offense, but he's the most prolific pass catcher in that program's history. So then in the testing was phenomenal. He ran in 4.44 in the 40. Then at the pro day, 6.55 in the 3-cone, which is just blows my mind.
Pretty gnarly.
Yeah. So I just, to me, this is a guy that's going, hopefully he lands in the right spot where they're going to use him the right way. He's not quite a full-time running back, not quite a full-time slot receiver, somewhere in the middle, some type of tweener. But I don't know. I'm going to find a way to really use this guy's strengths.
I actually do have one more, and this is not a player that I studied by himself, but I was watching his teammate. It kind of like you were talking about with like you go in to watch Keldrick Falcon and Keyron Crawford pops. For me, it was watching Emmanuel McNeil-Warren and watching both of the Toledo corners. I think are like, they're guys that are probably not going to go before the 5th round or whatever. And one of them, I think number 3, is a little bit stubbier, and so he's probably going to be a little bit not going to make it in the NFL as much. But Andre Fuller, he's 6 foot, 200 pounds, ran a 4.49. Like, he to me was consistently sticky in coverage, tackled really well, which I think especially if you're going to be a late round corner, like, to be able to stick on the field as like a potential run defender, I think is really helpful. So he was just a guy where, again, you're watching all these like star first round top 50 prospects, and then you notice their teammate. It's like, okay, that says something. And Fuller to me was one of the guys who popped.
Toledo, I don't know. They just find those DBs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that they've got a history of it, and yeah, it's going to continue in this draft. I mean, it's possible they're going to have 3 defensive backs drafted, and probably another one that's going to be a free agent. So it's pretty impressive.
We don't have to plan out future shows right now, Dane. I know you're ready to be done with this draft, but we got to talk over the summer about like identifying the next Toledo guy or the G5 guys that are hanging around.
Well, Jason Candle's at UConn now, so maybe we shift to UConn, or I don't know, because that's a big loss for Toledo. But the Magical keep going. Can I mention a few more here?
Yeah, of course, Dane.
Michael Heldman from Central Michigan. Now he's a 7th round guy, combine snub. but the way he played this year for Central Michigan, he just beat up on some MAC tackles in a big way, and he tested really well. 6'4", 270, 40-inch vert, 4.70 in the 40. So I think Michael Heldman is one of those guys that is easy to overlook, but in the late rounds, I'm definitely rolling the dice on him. Wide receiver, Cyrus Allen, Cincinnati. He's my top combine snub at wide receiver, 5'11", 183. Texas A&M transfer, who I think there's a lot more talent there than what we had a chance to see at A&M or Cincinnati. So I like his chances. Lance Mason from Wisconsin, another late round borderline guy from a transfer up from FCS, but he's just kind of solid all the way around. Like, not the biggest, not the most explosive player, not the strongest, but he's kind of good across the board. And so I don't know. I just feel like if he sticks and makes a final roster, I won't be surprised. So I like him quite a bit.
I do want to throw out for the record a couple more, just so that I have them for my own satisfaction. But I love Jakobe Thomas. I continue to love Jakobe Thomas. Dane, if he's your 11th safety, I mean, and it is a loaded safety class, but like, if that's the caliber of player I can find at like the 11th safety somewhere on day 3, I love a safety who hates the other team. It's my favorite. And Dallen Bentley, like among the day 3 tight ends, he was probably my favorite, like day 3 tight end at the University of Utah. And let me throw in, I gave this one to Derrik when we did Receivers Day, but you weren't on that show. My gigantic running back looking receiver, Josh Cameron, down at Baylor. I just love a receiver who wears 34 and posterizes people. I can't wait to see where he goes.
Yeah, all 220 pounds of him. Yeah,
it's awesome. I love a weird football player.
Yeah, I struggle with him a little bit just because obviously for a guy that's 220 pounds, he runs like he's 220 pounds, and that's always worries me a little bit in terms of separating and things like that. But yeah, on day 3 of the draft, I'd love to take a swing on him. That makes sense. One guy two guys I didn't mention in the day 2 category, but I just want to mention him. Keionte Scott from Miami. I mean, since you said Jakobe Thomas, gotta say Keionte. I mean, right after that Louisville game, we talked about him on Building the Beast the next week. Just, he's a linebacker and a corner body, and there's some holes in his game when you're talking about going in reverse and being a true nickel. But as a downhill player, man, he's so much fun, so explosive, one of the best blitzers in this class, just regardless of position. So really like him. And then at linebacker, Keyshaun Elliott, who I don't know why he's not liked more. He tested well. He's a good athlete. He's a former quarterback in high school. He was part of the same recruiting class as Diego Pavia at New Mexico State. Then he transfers to Arizona State. And to me, he's got NFL starts in his future. I just think he's a really well-rounded linebacker.
Arizona State with a just sneaky under the radar draft class. I feel like Maxi Ihenacho is getting some pub as we get closer to this thing, but Keith Abney flying under the radar a little bit. And I would argue, I understand it because of the injuries, but like Jordan Tyson flying under the radar a little bit for my money as well. So
working out today for teams, not going to test, but he's running routes. So, hey, that's something.
Something to keep an eye on until Thursday, which, Dane, I believe, is this your last show until you join us in Chicago?
It is, and we got a whole week planned. I mean, we've got the live get together on Tuesday with fans, which is going to be fun. I think we're doing a show Wednesday. Like, it's going to be a crazy week, and the week of, you always start hearing more and more things, and it's like, okay, we got to weed through this. What's the BS? What's actually am I believing? So the knowledge we have now compared to a few days from now is going to be really interesting.
Which we will be able to parse through it all together. Really looking forward to that. Dane mentioned the meet and greet, and yes, we will be live Thursday and Friday during the NFL draft, not to mention a recap on Saturday. Dane, myself, Derrik, Robert Mays, the great Bruce Feldman. We're going to have a loaded show Cannot wait to finally get into this. But for now, that's all we got. We appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching. Follow The Athletic Football Show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.